Well, good afternoon, good morning, and good evening, whatever time of the day it is that you're listening to this program. Welcome to Philadelphia Eagles Talk with Geoff. And I know it's been a little while since I've been on with you. It is the off season now, after all. So the kind of the I guess the intervals between shows is going to probably widen just a little bit. But hey, good things come to those who wait. And as I did kind of allude to in my last podcast, I was going to try to track down Matt and bring him on so we could finally go over and review our preseason predictions. I know you're all anxious to hear how we did. I don't know if we're as anxious to hear how we did. I know I misfired on quite a few of these. But thank you again for tuning in. I got some news to talk about as well right afterwards. We're going to dive right into this first and get Matt right on here, and we're going to go through these preseason predictions that we both tried to pretend we were Nostradamus and make some guesses as far as what some stats would be for the Eagles. And so, without any further ado, Matt, welcome back to the program.
Hey, thanks, Geoff. It's good to be back. The funny thing about the off season is you never want it to come. You want to keep playing in the playoffs, but it's funny because it's like you have to go through like almost the 5 stages of grief when somebody dies. It's like, that's the end of our season. I don't want to accept it. And then you got to accept it. And then it's like, all right, well, now what? And so you go through these stages, but it doesn't take too long because the season moves kind of quick, right? So already you've got the coaching carousel to talk about. You've got, okay, let's focus on the draft. What does this mean for us? The draft order's set because we know how teams have finished. So there's so much fun to be had for all the people that are true sports fans out there during this off season. So I'd rather have the Eagles playing this Sunday, but we can't. So now we move on, and we'll spend a little time talking about, you know what? If we didn't have the total calamity that ended up last season, I would have said our predictions were going to be spot on. But something unpredictable happened last season.
Yeah, some of them were on pace until the collapse. I have to say, as I go through some of these answers, we weren't. But even at the end, there was some of them we were extremely close on. We'll get to those too. So it's not a complete failure in terms of our predictions, but some of them are way off. But we'll get to those in a moment. But yeah, tons of talk about. To your point, the Eagles were playing at this time of the year last year as they were in the Super Bowl, as we remember. And, it's tough. It's really just the toughest thing for me, and I'm sure yourself and Eagle fans in general, I'm probably speaking from the majority of fans, is just the way that they went out. I mean, with no fight, no heart, just total epic collapse and just losing to bad teams, getting second chances for the second seed and still coming out and laying a big turd on the field. It's just that type of stuff is completely unacceptable to me, to I'm sure you, and I'm sure to most of this fan base. And that's the part that's the most frustrating as to how the season ended. Well, they could always have lost a tough game to a good team. That didn't happen. They were losing to bad teams and not even being competitive losing to bad teams. Anyway.
Yeah, they went out without even a whimper, it seems. And, cue Jeff Goldblum, that's one big pile of shit. And that's up the rest of the weeks after.
That is the perfect analogy. That is probably when people talk about Jurassic Park, I always bring up that scene. I'm like, that is my favorite scene in the entire movie. Even with all the CGI and the great dinosaurs, I love Jeff Goldblum striding up, taking his glasses off, and pure Goldblum fashion, just Mr. Cool, Calm, Collective, and just saying that is one big pile of shit. I love that. That scene is classic to me.
Yeah.
All right.
That's the summary. Yeah.
Yeah, and that's exactly what this season ended to. And who would have thought, after being 10-1, that it would have ended up a big pile of shit? But it did. Perfect analogy. Absolutely. All right, so here we go. I'm gonna read, because I know you haven't seen these questions since before the season started, so you may not even remember your answer. I'll give you the answer, but I'll just give you the name and some of these questions. So, who did you think would lead the Eagles in sacks?
I believe I said Hassan Reddick.
You did, and you are correct. I didn't ask for some reason I must have put these questions together because I'm like, why did I ask this question and that question? I'm like, man, I must have just thrown this together really quick before we went on that day. Next year, I'll promise to take more time in these preseason questions because I asked who's going to be the leader in sacks, but I didn't even ask, the follow-up question, how many sacks? So,
Yeah.
so I don't know why that was. So yes, you were right. You guessed Reddick. I guessed Josh Sweat, who was on pace to potentially, and then he just fell off with the like the team did. Um, but let's see. Some of this is gonna have to bear with me as I go through. So Reddick ended up with 11 sacks, so he did lead the team. And
He got 11. Wow.
yeah, he had 11 sacks, and second on the team in sacks was Josh Sweat. So it's not like I bombed on my guess. But the thing is, out of his 6.5 sacks that he had, I think six of the sacks, or five of them, were in the first like 5 or 6 games. Because
Yeah.
when the Eagles were like halfway through the season, I think he was leading the team in sacks, and then he just didn't do anything the rest of the year. I don't know what the heck happened to him. Like the rest of the team, they just I don't know. Who knows?
The defense. We'll talk about that in a bit once we get past the
Yeah.
predictions. But
So score win for Matt on that one. Now we go to, and this is a classic right here. The way this one ended up. So we had a prediction for the rookie first pick, Jalen Carter, number of sacks. Do you
I
remember?
want to say I was close on.
Well, here's the thing. This is what's funny about this. You guessed 7, I guessed 5, and he had 6.
6.
So we basically hit that right in the head between both of our guesses.
Yeah, there you go. Hey, you wanna make some money? Listen to our show.
That's right.
And then pick the choice.
Hell yeah, we know what we're talking about. So far, 1 and 2 in sacks predictions, and we were one off one way and the other, high and low on the Carter's sacks. So, which is good. We're off to a good start because it gets worse from here. So,
how many interceptions? Let's not talk about it.
Yeah, well, that's actually what's next.
I remember who I said.
Who did you say?
I want to say Sidney Brown is who
You
I said.
did. You did say Sidney Brown. And again, I didn't ask for how many numbers. Or how many interceptions. I just said who's going to lead the Eagles in interceptions. Now, you did guess Brown, and I guessed Blankenship, who led the Eagles in interceptions. So I'm still off to a pretty good start here.
And how many did he have?
He had 3, I believe. Let me check. Yeah, he didn't have a ton. Let me see here. Interceptions. Yeah, Blankenship had 3. Darius Slay had 2. He was second. And there was a bunch of people that had 1, including Bayard, Bradbury, Sidney Brown. So Brown did have 1. Brown did have the most exciting interception.
Brown had the most explosive defensive player of the year.
He did. He had the best defensive player of the season.
Yep, and then they started him in a meaningless game, and then
don't get me going on that. I probably went 3 podcasts just absolutely hammering Eagles for being that stupid.
I'm sure you did. If they haven't heard how Geoff could get and stew for weeks, you just heard it.
Oh, they did. They did. I actually had to force myself not to keep talking about it, which was hard. So, yeah, my audience is well informed of my displeasure with the Eagles' stupidity. Tackles for loss. Who was your guess? Do you remember your guess?
I'm going to go Reddick again, but I'm not sure.
You went with Sweat.
Oh, okay.
I went with Reddick, and Reddick did win. So I did better. I mean, believe me, my fault. My bad guesses are coming up, believe me. But so far, I'm doing pretty damn good. Reddick did lead the Eagles in tackles for losses with 13. Now, your guy, Sweat, finished 3rd. Or 4th. Can you guess who finished 2nd? Only 1 behind Reddick. This is going to be probably surprising for you. It was for me. Who finished 1 behind Reddick with tackles for loss? Who would be your guess?
I would say got to be a DT, maybe Milton Williams or Carter.
Carter finished 3rd. He's the one that's in between. He's the other one that's in between Reddick and Sweat.
BG?
Nope. This is why it's a shock. It really is surprising.
Can't be a linebacker.
It is a linebacker. And it's the player that also had the only safety on the team this year. So maybe that'll help you.
It's not Morrow?
It is Morrow.
It is Morrow. Yeah, he had a safety lead, right?
Yeah. So you look at Morrow's stats this year. He was second on the team in tackles. By the way, third on the team in tackles was Zach Cunningham. And 12 tackles for a loss, which is impressive as hell. And he had
in the beginning of the season.
He also had 5 quarterback hits and 1 safety and 3 sacks. I mean, you look at those numbers from a linebacker, and you're like, damn, that's pretty damn good. But we also know that he was horrible in pass coverage.
Yeah.
So as good as he is with those stats, which are impressive, I mean, who wouldn't take that stat line? Almost 100 tackles, 12 tackles for a loss, 5 quarterback hits, a safety, and 3 sacks.
Yeah, that's good.
I would take that any day of the week out of a linebacker. But he could not cover me in the outfield.
Yeah.
In the secondary. And I'm 50 years old now. Maybe when I was younger, it'd be tough to cover me, but not anymore. All right, so points per game on defense. I gotta see if I even can figure this stat out here.
Wow, this one's gonna be way off the mark. I remember the expectations I had going into the season.
Yeah, we're way off on this one. I'm trying to find total points scored against here. I know I did figure it out at one time, but I don't have it in front of me. So
they must have averaged giving up maybe 20 points a game, 21, 22 points a game.
How the hell do I find points given up? Hang on one second. This is going to take me a second.
Yeah.
I
remember thinking like under 20 points is a good defense. Over 20 points is probably average.
You know what? Let me just go to the standings really quick, and that'll give me the. Then I can do the math really, really fast. So in the meantime, just talk about something. Just kill some dead air time.
Hey, well, sounds like a good time to plug my favorite reference website, Pro Football Reference, where you can type in these type of stats and pull up anything you want.
Actually, that's where I was just on. I was just on. But rather than that, to me, I couldn't find it. I scrolled through it, and I know it's on there, but I think right now, just so I don't kill too much time. But that is the Pro Football Reference is an awesome site.
It's my go-to.
For any and all stats. But I'm going to go to regular season and just do the math really quick. So Eagles scored. They gave up 428 points. So what is that divided by 17? Do some quick math here. 428 divided by 17. 428 divided by 17 is, drum roll, 25.17. Here's where both you and me took a diversion to the to not being anywhere close. You had, do you remember? You want to take a guess where you were around?
I want to say I was at 20 or just below it, which is crazy.
You were way below it.
Like 13, 14?
13.9.
That's just crazy. Looking back, I'm like, what?
And I was 16.5. So playing the Price is Right game, I'll get closer too, but we were both almost 10 points. You were 12 points per game off, and I was 9 points per game off.
I am sure whenever listeners listen to that episode, we definitely got some shock and awe going on with that. We're like, what?
Yeah, we totally overrated our defense.
Even with just the current rules of the game, how everything's geared to the offense, why would we have said?
I don't know. Yeah, those are bad. Those were just bad.
Less than, if you're up around 18, 19 points per game, you've got one of the top defenses in the NFL. Where did we put the Eagles? 13, 16 points. Yeah. Wow. Yeah. Okay, that's the homer pick right there.
Yeah. Woo. The audience must be like, what the hell are you guys smoking? And I don't blame them, because that's pretty bad. So offensively, now we're going to be much closer. So that's a relief.
Well, we didn't expect the defense to play like they did.
Oh wow, holy smokes! As bad as we were defensively, we were right on the freaking nose offensively. You had 24 points per game. All right, on average. Yeah. They ended up with 25.4. Okay. You want to know what my guess was?
28?
25.3.
Wow.
I actually put the 0.3 in. I was 0.1% off from hitting that one.
Yeah, that's pretty good.
25.4 was the actual, and I guessed 25.3. I mean, you can't get better than that.
Yeah.
And your 24 is right there too. So we both were nailed that one right on the nose. All right, rushing touchdowns. Who would lead the Eagles in rushing touchdowns? This one was a layup guess by both of us and ended up being true.
Yeah, Swift.
No.
Oh,
No.
I'm sorry. I thought you said by a running back.
No, not by running back. No, just rushing touchdowns.
Jalen Hurts.
Yeah. Hey, you threw me off there for a second. Here I am talking about being a layup. I remember we both answered that pretty quick, like, oh, it's going to be Hurts. Yes, it was Hurts. No surprise there. Okay, so the next one was touchdowns for A.J. Brown. When this is one of those stats where he was well on his way to being where we both came in.
Oh, my God, he was.
But then the Eagles decided not to throw to him the last 5 games of the season.
No, well, they did, but only in desperation throw.
Yeah, only when the game was on the line and he was under pressure and he decided to launch it 60 yards down the field in triple coverage. So, you want to guess what your guess was?
I must have had him at like 13, maybe?
You had him at 12, which is exactly what I had. We both guessed 12 touchdowns. He ended up with 7, which he basically had when the Eagles were 10-1.
Yeah. First team season, he had 7 touchdowns.
Yeah, so he was right on pace to be right where we guessed, but we ended up overshooting there. Now, I asked the same question about Smith, Devontae. So what do you think? You remember what your guess was there?
Well, 9, maybe 10.
You guessed 9. Yep. And he ended up with, I think he had 7 also. Yeah. Both him and Smith, Brown and Smith, both had 7 touchdowns. So you ended up winning this one in the Price is Right rules because I guessed 10. So you were closer. Okay. Wait, this next one's going to blow you out of mind too. Okay. How close we were. How many passing yards for Hurts?
I think I had him at like 4,200 or 4,300.
4,001.
4,001.
Yep.
That's what I said, or that's what he got?
No, that's what you said. That was your guess.
Okay, yeah.
I had 4,020. So we were both.
Middle of that.
And Matt and I, by the way, we didn't talk about our answers before I asked Matt live on that podcast. Go back to that podcast before the season started. You'll hear these answers live. So there's no hanky-panky going on here where we were, colluding or guessing and getting close to each other. We both had these guesses on the spot.
Yeah.
And so Matt had 4,001. I had 4,020. And Hurts ended up with 3,858. So pretty close. Pretty close. You win again with the Price is Right, being closer. And now we go to passing touchdowns by Hurts. What do you think your guess was there?
Well, I want to say 25.
You guessed 28.
28, okay.
And I guessed 31. So
I remember you higher.
Yeah. So again, the Price is Right rules, you win again because Hurts had only 23.
23.
So you were 5 off.
Right?
I think it's disappointing, yeah, for sure. And this offense, way disappointing. Yeah.
Yeah. Did not live up to expectations.
Nope, definitely not. Now, I had the perfect when I was guessing for this question what to make is the over-under. It was a perfect over-under number, and that was the number of rushing yards by Hurts. I remember you might remember I had the question and put the over-under at 700 yards. Do you want to guess what was right, the over-under?
I think I would have probably said under.
Yes, we both said under.
We both said under, and we but we're right.
And he had, yep, so 700 was the line I gave.
Yeah,
and we both took the under, and Hurts ended up with 605 rushing yards.
605, okay.
Yep. So I guess 600 would have been the best, most ideal line to have, because that was 605. But still, I put it at 700, pretty damn close. So we both were right hitting the under. And you're right, Matt. I'm going to echo your thoughts at the beginning of this thing, because we're actually doing better than I thought overall. We're hitting these pretty good. Some of them were way off, but you know what? To guess what we did for the season, most of these are pretty damn close. But now is my complete disaster of a guess that's coming up, and that is receiving yards and touchdowns by Goddard.
Well, he missed.
He did miss some games. Yes, he missed. Let me see. He missed 3 games.
Yeah, his recovery from that fractured forearm was amazing. Like that's.
Yeah, he could have missed more than that. Yeah, he came back 3 games. Yeah. All right, so
we're gonna be way over yards.
Yeah. Well, put it this way, Matt: as way over as you were, I was even further over. So.
And the problem was he was just coming alive.
Yeah, I know. I totally underestimated him here. I think even with the 3 games, I mean, if you factor in the 3 games, you would have probably been close. I still would have been over.
Way over?
I think you would have been close. Yeah.
I was guessed in the 800s.
You guessed 864 yards.
Okay, yeah.
And the actual was 500. Again, remember, we were thinking 17 games.
Yeah.
The actual for Goddard was 592 yards.
How many balls did he catch?
That one was not one of my questions, but he caught 59 for a,
okay, that number's higher than
for a 10-yard per catch average.
Gotcha.
So pretty good stats, and like I said, you would have been close. Me? I almost had him at 1,000 yards. I had him at 970 yards receiving.
Yeah.
So he wasn't going to have that unless he had an absolute took off in the second half of the season. So
that will explain your 31 point per game.
Yeah, exactly. The 31 touchdown passes by Hurts. Yeah, I expected more to go to him. So touchdowns, I did for some reason, even though I didn't do I did do it for Smith and Brown. How many touchdowns did you predict for Goddard? And again, you got to keep in mind he missed 3 games here with these guesses. So,
I think.
What'd you say?
7, I think.
You guessed 6, which is not bad because you would have been close again because he had 3. I actually had 3 on the season.
3 touchdown catches. God,
so he probably that's horrible for Goddard. I mean, that's bad. That's just bad. You got a guy like Goddard with his ability. He's got to score more than 3 times, even though he played 3 less games. He should be at least around what you guessed, 6. And that's with missing 3 games. I guessed 8 touchdowns. I basically had Goddard as the number 1 starter in the Pro Bowl this year with my guesses.
So how many touchdowns did Julio Jones get?
3. He had as many as Goddard, and he had 11. And he had 11 catches.
Yeah. So you throw those onto Goddard, and now I'm right on with the touchdown.
That's true, and I would have been just 2 over. So you're going to win that one again with the price and right rule.
I'll take it. I bid $1, and I got
it. Yeah, you did. Here's one I couldn't find the stat, and that is sacks given up by Juergens. You had 2, I had 4. I don't know where to find that stat. Let me see if I can punch him up here.
Well, he missed a bunch of games too, right?
He did miss some games, yeah. He did. I'll look at that one afterwards. We'll save that one. Who's going to have more receptions, Gainwell or Swift?
I guess I would have guessed Gainwell, but I think Swift. I think Swift clearly beat him.
Yeah, and I think me listening to you rave about Gainwell all the time, you influenced me to also guess Gainwell, and we were both wrong because it was Swift.
Yeah, and Swift was dynamic, man. I hope We'll talk about it, but God, they got to sign Swift back. Please.
Yeah, only 9 more. It was still close. Swift had 39, Gainwell had 30.
Yeah.
So it wasn't that far off, but we were both wrong. Now, here's one that ended up being a moot question because he was traded by the end of the season, and that was roughing or major penalties by Barnett. And you had 3 and I had 2, but first of all, he didn't play enough to even get penalties, but with the Eagles, then he was traded. So I don't have the answer to that one. And because he's no longer an Eagle, I'm not going to spend much time on it.
You know what, though? Wouldn't it be funny if he actually had 3 with the Texans? I don't know.
But yeah, that would be. I could probably. I don't know how to even find that out. Next year, I'm going to have what's going to be the field goal percentage for Elliott because I think that'd be a good one to go on. I mean, it's practically 100%. He was 93.8 this year. The guy is ridiculously good.
Yeah,
he is so underappreciated by the Eagles. I mean, I shouldn't say that. I think Eagle fans appreciate him, but it just goes. I think it's worth saying and repeating how freaking good Jake Elliott is of a kicker.
Yeah, I would seriously consider him as Eagles MVP for the season, man.
He probably, you know what? He probably was.
Yeah. Showed up every single day and lived up to expectations.
Yeah, it was probably A.J. Brown until he completely collapsed. Not his fault, but, because they just weren't throwing him anymore and the Eagles offense just hit the skid so bad. It probably was him. But I think Jake, over 50-yard field goals this year was 7 for 8.
7 for 8.
Over 57 for 8. Yep. And he hit a 61-yarder as well. So he actually hit one over 60. It's unbelievable. It really is.
And that's like in a season where you're like, Jalen Hurts, wow, that's weird. Why did that finish that way? A.J. Brown, that's weird. Why did that finish that way? With a defense that's like unpredictable, why did that finish that way? When it comes to Jake Elliott, you're like, yeah, dude was Mr. Consistent all the way through, like ultra reliable, can count on. And God, if more games just came down to him, we'd be all right. I'd be like, hey, he's the MVP, man. I'd give it to him this year.
Now, I saved the best for last in terms of you being at the butt end of this joke. Okay. Because I think it was just announced today. I could be wrong, but I swear to God I heard it on the radio. I'll have to double check because I don't want to give you heat if it's not accurate. But I asked, it was actually your question. You asked, when I was finished with my questions, who would be the first coach to be fired?
Oh, yeah.
And I guessed Ron Rivera, who I don't think he was the first, but he was one of them. He got fired. So I was right. I just don't know if he was the first one to get canned. But do you remember who your guess was?
He made it to the end of the season. The first one was canned in the middle of the season.
Yeah, I can't remember who it was. Right. So I wasn't right, but at least my coach got fired.
Yeah. Well, I almost named this guy instead of who I did name. I think I named Stefanski for the Browns, right?
Yeah, and he just won Coach of the Year.
Yeah, of course. Because he turns Joe Flacco. He loses Nick Chubb. He loses his quarterback.
I know.
Joe Flacco off the couch, and they get into the playoffs.
All right, so did you hear that as well? Because I thought I heard that on the radio today, and I was kind of like laughing because I remember that you picked him to be the first coach fired. So is that true? Do I need to look it up?
Look up what?
That he was Coach of the Year. He was named Coach of the Year.
I don't know if he was. I assume he's a candidate. I did not see whether or not he was.
Yeah.
Winner of the coach. I know all the awards just came out, so it's possible. I know Flacco won Comeback Player of the Year, I think, right?
Yes, he did. Yeah. Let me just verify this. Let me see if it's on here.
While you're looking, the coach that was the first fired coach of the year was Josh McDaniel out in LA, and I'm pretty sure I mentioned him as an honorable mention of like, well, there's always Josh McDaniel. But I went with Stefanski.
You might have. I'll verify that. I just don't want to. I don't want to do too much clicking around because sometimes I'll lose my feed. I don't want to have to start the show over. So I will verify that on my next podcast. But I do think that Matt's prediction for the first coach fired actually wins NFL Coach of the Year, which is funny. I have to, that's just funny.
We'll see what happens next year.
But overall, you won the prediction battle. You had more guesses closer to the right answer than I did. So good job. And all right. So now let's dig into I usually have notes and stuff, but I know you got to get going pretty soon, so there's a few things I want to touch on here. So much to talk about. Where do we start? Let's start with the coaching changes. What are your thoughts on some of these moves the Eagles have made? Do you like them? Do you not like them? Do you think they were necessary? Just give me your general thoughts.
Well, so general thoughts is we lost a lot more last year than we thought going into the season, right? The loss of Shane Steichen and the loss of Jonathan Gannon. Huge impact.
Which I said was my biggest concern. I don't know if I had you on when I said that, but before the season started, that's what I said was my biggest concern with this team. And they got off to a 10-1 start, and I'm like, well, I guess it's nothing to be concerned about. You would think that if it was a concern, it would start at the beginning of the season when they would struggle, and then it would get better as the season went on. That's what just doesn't make hardly any sense when you think about it, because they ended up having major coaching issues second half of the season.
Well, so what was weird was I don't get how you demote somebody yet keep them on the team.
That was a horrible decision.
That defense off to Patricia. I'm like, I thought if there's one mistake Sirianni made, it was that.
If it was him, I still think it was done above his head.
Yeah.
But yeah.
Fire him so he's out of the room and give the whole thing to Patricia.
Yeah. That's why I think that that to me validated the reason why they didn't fire Sirianni this year, because that's a fireable decision. That one that blows up that badly in your face. And to me, if that was indeed Sirianni who made that decision, I think the Eagles would have fired him. That's why I really think that decision was made by above Sirianni. It was made by Howie, even though they don't admit it. They won't admit it. But to me, it validates that that's what happened because Sirianni did keep his job. Because they can't fire a guy who was told to do something that they wanted him to do.
No. Oh, no, that's true. And maybe that's the way. And I hope Sirianni told them, like, hey, if you don't let me make those decisions, it spoils the locker room. And that's exactly what happened.
Yeah, it did.
After that move, never got better.
No.
They may have had issues with the side, but they were still playing.
Right.
And there was no more playing after they lost.
And then you got
Niners game. They make these moves. I'm just like, the Niners are a good team. Like,
right. And you had an easier part of your schedule coming up. I mean, you don't make those moves then. Why hit the panic button after losing to two of the best teams in the league?
Yeah.
Doesn't make any sense.
Won games at the beginning of the season, so something was going right early. And I remember saying in one of your podcasts, like, it's not time to panic. Like, let's just get back on track. Slow corrections are the best ones. So I don't know what happened there. I read an article this week that said that Desai had disgruntled a lot of players, and they were already checking out, and that's why the move was made to put Desai
I heard that too.
The game planning.
I heard that too. Yeah, I heard that too.
And that makes a lot of sense then, but I'm just glad that house is clean on defense. I love the signing of Vic Fangio, but even more than that, Vic. You look at all these guys that have signed on to be part of his.
Yeah, he's bringing in some good experienced coaches.
They're great. The defensive lineman.
The D-line coach looks like you could suit him up, man. I mean, that guy's. Yeah. You seen the size of that dude? Holy cow!
He was the defensive coordinator for Seattle last year. So
yeah,
he's got the full job experience. So I'm like, I'm not sure Fangio's going to coach for all that long. Part of it was his move to get home to his family in Scranton.
Yep.
So he's probably not in it, but he's brought a structure that's going to be set up for a few years if things work out right. So I love the Vic Fangio hiring. Love everyone else that's come over to help him out. They just signed the defensive backs coach.
Right.
From Denver, right? So you got
the Denver guy. Worked with Surtain.
With Surtain Jr. Yep. And I'm like, okay, that's good because hopefully that means we'll draft some young quarterbacks or at least keep developing Keely Ringo.
Right.
So I love that. And then on the offensive side, I have one con with Kellen Moore and the rest I love. So I love the fact that when Kellen Moore was with the Cowboys, we never had an answer for him.
Right. That's true.
He brushed us every time, right? So
he did.
I like that. I don't think, the offense didn't suffer all that much out there in San Diego. He's almost a casualty of them firing the head coach and moving in a completely other direction.
That was a bad coach they had over there, too. I blame the head coach more than him. The head coach
What
of San Diego is
I don't like
terrible.
about Kellen Moore, he doesn't hardly run the ball,
Right.
but he does have the backs active in that screen passing game.
He likes to throw to the backs, yes. Which makes...
He does throw to the backs, and I'm like, that's why I'm like, God, please sign Swift.
Yeah.
You got Swift and Gainwell that can both catch and run out of the backfield, and Kellen Moore, that works right into what he does best. He also loves throwing to both of those wideouts too, though. So
yeah, like you can see Devontae Smith really taking off.
Yeah, I see both Brown and Smith being highly capable in this offense. Plus, he's a creative mind.
Yeah.
And when they were in the red zone, he scores points.
Yeah.
So.
Yeah, overall, I like it. The only reason why I get my con, I guess, is that the fact that he's coming from Dallas and the Cowboys know his tendencies. So you're talking about your number one rival who's going to know your offensive scheme pretty well.
They do, but Quinn moved on, right? So
Quinn did, but some of the players are still there, though. Like Dak is still there,
But
CeeDee Lamb is still there.
I think Moore rethinks stuff every season.
Hopefully, he's going to have to. Yeah, he'll have to change things up for sure. Overall, I like the move, though. I think he's one of the better offensive coordinators in the NFL. So it's not, I don't have, like when I say cons, the pros to me outweigh the cons.
And he helped develop Dak. He helped develop Josh Herbert. So, he's got some experience working with young quarterbacks and taking advantage of what they do best. And I think he's got enough clout to put his foot down with Jalen Hurts, because I still don't know what happened on offense where, what's the story? I've read both stories. I read Hurts audibled out of so many plays because they were bad.
Yeah.
But then I'm like, well, the plays that he audibled out of were still bad. So who's first? And I just remember in my head, and most people probably remember this, when Hurts tried to audible out of that one play. I forget which game it was, but Kelsey looks at him. He's like, "No, dude."
Yeah, he's yelling at him. Yeah.
Left. Like, just fucking hike the
ball. Yeah,
and
then ended up being like a 15-yard gain.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So.
Yeah, so Kelsey was not always on the same page with his audibles either. Clearly.
No, so I'm hoping more.
But the problem is we may not have Kelsey next year to be barking at Hurts anymore.
Yes. So we'll see how that goes. I think it's good because of stability. Like, we needed to stabilize both sides right off the bat, and we've got that as a minimum. So,
yeah, I agree. They needed to make full scale changes, and they did. They've completely changed over. Like, they didn't keep any of the coaches other than Stoughton, which is which is good, because I don't want to ever lose that guy.
And I look, people hate Sirianni because he doesn't step in and meddle with what he's assembled, but I think that's a good thing with their head coach. You look at how he allowed Shane Steichen, when he was here, to turn that offense into a powerhouse. And Nick stepped out and said, "I'm not."
Yeah, he said he admitted he wasn't good at play calling, and turned it over to Stoughton, and they went nuts. And
he wants to have that happen with Moore too. He's like, Moore's going to run this offense. I want Moore to.
Well, I think Howie basically told him that you're not going to be. I think Howie basically gave him the directive. Yeah, I think Howie and Jeffrey Lurie said, "Listen, if you want to keep your job, Kellen Moore is running the offense. You stay out of it." I think it was more like that.
Yeah, the other thing I love about Moore is I don't think he's a strictly RPO type guy either. So
no, they didn't run that many RPOs in Dallas. They didn't run many RPOs in Dallas.
No, they take advantage of their tight ends. They got a good one here. Moore's always got some teams, and we did so much RPO the last 2 years, and I'm pretty sure that's kind of figured out.
Defense has figured it out.
On the ball like a beast, then it's easily stoppable.
And defense and Hurts, as he gets older, is not going to be as quick and elusive anyway. So that play is going to go away gradually, just because of his, just getting older.
Yep, and he never was a quick twitch guy.
He wasn't.
Lamar Jackson.
Yeah, no, you're right.
Other guys that really have escapism. He doesn't really have the escape.
Yeah, he just finds a hole and goes.
Power run. Yeah.
Yeah.
So I like them both, and they needed stability there. So that's an upgrade already. And I'm just glad that they did it so quickly after the season ended, so that we're not toiling around with trying to grab other people's scraps.
Yeah, I agree. I absolutely agree with that. All right. let's see. I know you got to get going here pretty soon. I'm trying to think of some other things. What about talked a little bit about defense? Let's just think about some of the. We'll have you on before the draft, obviously. In fact, what I'm thinking about doing is bringing Johnny and you on at the same time because Johnny actually follows the draft pretty closely, and he's kind of going to be like my draft expert, quote unquote, to bring on the show. So I might have like all three of us on in a pre-draft episode, so we'll all kind of go through the draft together.
Awesome.
So that'll be fun. Looking forward to that. I'm going to ask before you go for your Super Bowl prediction. I already gave mine on the podcast last week, but I'll let you know what it is as well after I hear yours. Is there anything you want to talk about before I let you go? Anything else on your mind about the Eagles that you want to just get off your chest? Or are you good?
No, I think that's it. If you were to summarize last season, it just quite simply comes to did not live up to expectations.
Yeah.
And trying to figure out why, who knows? Only the inside people know, I think A.J. Brown got a lot of criticism locally, and people were starting to call him checked out. Even I was starting to bend that way of like, wait, what are you doing, AJ? Like, why aren't you talking to the media?
Yeah.
But all of AJ's interviews since has been the same story. He's like, no, just trying to grow up. I'm just trying to keep my stuff inside. I talk about everything every day, and that's why I clean up my social media.
Yep.
But you hear key players talking about Sirianni, and all of them are positive.
Yeah, they did. That's actually another reason. I'm glad you brought that up because I wanted to mention that too. That's another reason why they brought Sirianni back because I think because I knew that's one thing that Lurie is very good about getting a pulse of the team. I always thought that Lurie has a really good pulse of the team, which is why he knows when to pull the trigger and when not to. And once I saw Kelsey come out and Fletcher Cox and Graham all really going to bat and saying, Sirianni is not the problem here. Kelsey used the word. I love Coach Sirianni. When you hear that, I knew he was going to get fired. Cox
called that one reporter a dumbass to his face.
Oh yeah, yeah. He was like, "What the hell? What the hell are you talking about? Get on my face, man!" Something like that. He did. He completely shut him down. Yeah.
Yeah, you would not have seen that type of reaction from the players if Nick had lost the locker room, like a lot of local media saying he did.
Right. So. Yep. So you saw that real live reaction from Fletcher. You saw the response from Kelsey using the word "I love Coach Sirianni." Once I saw those two things, I didn't think Lurie would fire him. I just thought he'd be able to survive. Now, I do think going into next year he's going to be on thin ice.
He will be. Yes, he will be on thin ice. But I think, I just think the Eagles are still a very talented team. So I don't, they've got stability now, and honestly, Hurts and Sirianni are going to be tied together next year.
Yeah, but when you're paying the player, $300 something million, he's going to survive. The coach is going to go.
Yeah,
but I get your point. There's definitely going to be a ton of pressure on Hurts for sure.
Because they cleared out the coaches, and so now they're saying, "Okay, we're sorry we messed you up last year."
Right.
But there's not a person in the world that would say that he didn't regress on the field with the way he's playing quarterback. So
definitely not. I was saying it almost the whole season that he was regressing before our eyes. Even when they were 10-1, I had issues with Hurts on this podcast, and I was calling him out then, and he never corrected him.
So, I think there's a lot of positive things to look forward to. As far as the Super Bowl goes, it's so hard to say that Mahomes is going to lose a game of this magnitude.
Because he doesn't. He just doesn't lose these games.
Yeah, there was a lot of stories that broke last week about his dad being arrested. I'm like, if anything, Mahomes is going to kick it up even to a higher degree because he's going to be that much more.
I didn't know his dad was arrested. I thought his brother was the one that was arrested.
Yeah, his dad got arrested for I don't know.
Really, the former pitcher.
Yeah. Yep.
Really, I did not hear that. So what happened? What's the story?
Yeah. Well, he just arrested, picked up for DUI.
Oh, it was DUI. Okay.
Like a whole bunch of them. They were talking about this on local.
Oh, I didn't know that. Yeah, for some reason I've been kind of checked out with Fountain Sports this week. I mean, I usually just watch if it's two teams that I'm obviously going to watch Super Bowl, but I have not been watching any of the media days or anything like that. Usually I do, but maybe it's because the Eagles aren't in it this year and I'm just dejected. But
I checked it out this year, and they asked Mahomes directly about that this week, and he just said, "Yeah, I'm not going to answer that question. I mean, ask me a football question." And he's focused. But I'm like, Brock Purdy may come out in a maze, right? Because he always is proving people wrong, and he'll probably keep the Niners right there. But I just don't see Mahomes not living up to the moment every single time. Like he's
I agree.
like
he doesn't make mistakes in these big games. Just doesn't.
He doesn't. He doesn't. Now his team might make mistakes around him, but he is like
he doesn't.
I look at Mahomes. I'm like, what you have in Mahomes is an athletic Tom Brady. Like the guy mentally is all over the game of football.
Yeah.
And knows all the right things to do.
Yep.
But then his body allows him to do even some wrong things that he knows are going to end up right.
Like, yeah, because he's a little more versatile. He's got the pocket presence of Brady, but he can also escape. And Brady could never escape, but he can escape.
And he's one of those guys that when he has to scramble, he's going to run just fast enough that you can't catch him. It's the most frustrating thing.
Just enough to get the first down.
Yeah. So I think Mahomes is the reason why the Chiefs are going to win. Plus the Chiefs defense, I think, has been playing a little bit better than the Niners defense, but I expect it to be a close game. I expect Kelsey and Kittle to be the two stars as far as the receivers go. And what a fantastic matchup that's going to be to watch. And then you've got these other guys. Who's going to make more plays outside the tight end position? Rashid Rice or Deebo Samuel,
Or Ayuk.
Or Ayuk, yeah. So going to be a good game, but I think ultimately Mahomes has just got a champion's mentality, a champion's heart. He's just so tough to beat all the time.
All right.
So,
well,
I just got home.
All right. Well, give me a second to give you my take. Give me the final score.
I would say let's go 34 Chiefs and 27.
34-27 Chiefs. Okay. So here's my take on this game. I agree with a lot of what you said. But I'm taking. What's that?
Don't be afraid.
Don't be afraid of what? I'm losing you a little bit. You're cutting out. So I'll just go on and let you know what my prediction is. So, can you hear me now?
Yeah, I got you.
Okay, you're back. All right. So, I agree with what you said. I think I 100% agree with everything you said about the Chiefs, what you said about Mahomes, the players on each side. I agree with all that. For me, I think when I look at both of these teams, I think the 49ers are the better team. Now, the better team doesn't always win. Who's got the advantage at quarterback? The Chiefs do, Mahomes, which is always key in these big games, always. Now, one thing that I like about Purdy is the guy is resilient, and so I don't see him fading under the pressure or struggling. Or if he does struggle, I could see him rebounding from it if he starts off slow. Like I'm becoming more of a believer in Purdy, even though I don't like him. I'm not a fan of his because I think he's a little cocky myself, just personally. He comes across to me that way. I'm not saying I'm right about that. He may not be cocky at all, but to me, I see some cockiness in him. There's a smirk he has in his face all the time. But people that were saying that he's just a system quarterback and he's just a product of the system, I'm like, no, this guy can play football. He can throw accurately. Doesn't have the strongest arm in the world, but he can make the throws. And he's got a little clutch gene in him himself. I think I've seen it too. So if it's a close game, I can see Purdy, on the last drive, making plays and getting San Fran in a position to make the field goal. Now, this gets to my other point, making the field goal. The Chiefs also have a huge advantage in special teams because their kicker is really good. The 49ers kicker sucks. He's terrible. So if this game comes down to a field goal, advantage Kansas City. All that being said, with all these close calls the 49ers have made in the years, getting to the Super Bowl, getting to the NFC Championships, I think this year they're going to get over the top. And I think the 49ers are going to find a way to win this game and win a close one against the Chiefs. But I am going to be rooting for the Chiefs.
I think I'm rooting for the Chiefs too, but I would love to see, Kyle Shanahan is a superb football coach. So
he is.
The part of me that's not rooting for the Chiefs is actually rooting for Kyle Shanahan to finally punch through.
Yeah, I think they're going to do it. That's really what I'm getting down to. I think the 49ers are going to finally win a Super Bowl, to win it this year. I just have a feeling that a better team. To me, I look at both of the rosters. The Chiefs don't have as much firepower as the 49ers do offensively, and I think the 49ers defense is a little bit better than the Chiefs, although it's pretty close. Chiefs are playing really well defensively. But I just have a feeling that the 49ers are going to win this game.
Some sort of plan for McCaffrey.
Right. That's the other thing. Weapon X in this game is McCaffrey. He is the human joystick that could be the difference maker, the wild card, whatever you want to call him. There's no McCaffrey on the Chiefs.
No, and McCaffrey is the equivalent to Mahomes. Like if I'm saying, how do you beat Mahomes in the biggest game ever? I'm like, well, you can flip that on the other side and say, how do you beat McCaffrey?
How do you stop McCaffrey?
In the biggest game ever?
Yep.
Because they both just are unflappable, non-flinching, and give me the ball.
Yeah.
Give me the ball. Matters. Give me the ball.
Now, I think you got a higher scoring game. I think this game's going to be a little lower scoring. I kind of see it more in the 20s, mid to upper 20s, like a 27-24, 49ers win.
Yeah. What would be your over-under, yes or no, on a ref making some sort of game-changing blowout call that totally F's up the day?
Well, if it happens, it'll be pro Chiefs and pro Mahomes. He'll get the call and Purdy won't. That you can almost guarantee that. You asked me what the play will be, like if it'll be a late hit or a hit, unnecessary roughness on the quarterback or a pass interference. Oh, you're saying over under. You're saying how many bad calls will it be?
Ref blows the game.
I don't know. I mean,
or picks up a flag that should have been a freaking
right. Should have been a penalty. Yeah.
And they have a conference and they're like, well, we can't do this.
Like a push off on Kelsey or something. Like Kelsey pushing off and getting open. I can see that not being called. Because, Taylor Swift's at the game. We can't call Travis for pushing off. Yeah. Listen, I got no faith in the refereeing gets worse in the league every single year. So there's no doubt that there's going to be bad calls in this game.
Ultimately, that's why I asked the question because I'm like, my biggest fear of the Super Bowl is that the refs interject.
Like they did last year.
Yep.
Yes. Bradbury said he tugged him lightly. Which he did. Everyone saw it. It was a very light tug. Didn't matter on the play at all. The ball was way thrown over his head. But the thing is, they didn't call that at all the entire game. And you're going to call it with 2 minutes left?
No. And I saw at least 10 non-calls this year in different games that were way worse
than that. Exactly. Right. That's the issue with the call, not the fact that Bradbury did tug on his shoulder or tug on his jersey for a half a second. The ball was thrown 10 yards over his head. It should never have been called. Especially, again...
Hopefully we don't have to talk
about I don't want to talk about it again. It was bad enough it burned our Eagles last year because the Eagles should have won that game. But, yeah, I agree with you. Let's hope there's a clean game and the right team wins because they outplayed the other one. So, all right, man, I know you got to run. So thank you all again for tuning in to Philadelphia Eagles Talk with Geoff. Let me get this outro music going. There we go. Matt, thank you, as always, for coming on, and we'll certainly have you on again in the off-season. We got to talk about the draft. Go ahead. Yeah, we got to talk about... Sorry, go ahead.
Absolutely, and on to the off-season, and let's go Birds.
There we go. Let's go Birds. So thank you all for tuning in with Philadelphia Eagles Talk with Geoff. My announcement was you're going to see the program, be able to find it on YouTube very shortly. So stay tuned for that as we continue to branch out here on Philadelphia Eagles Talk with Geoff. Thanks again for tuning in. As Matt said, fly Eagles fly. We'll talk to y'all again soon.